Hey guys, that is the new sound of that F1 show. So, massive thanks to Mark, our friend who has created that for us. Love it. Thanks so much, Mark. So our first episode went out last week. Thanks to everyone who listened. Lots of people send messages and saying you're listening on your way to work, or maybe you're just working from home, had it on the background. So thank you to everyone. I know there's people who have listened in England, there's people who listened in America, and all across. So both of us have been blown away actually by the comments coming in, just different uh, feedback. Some questions have been sent as well for Ask Alan, which is coming up later. So look forward to that one, Alan. It'll be great. But the first episode, obviously, we had to predict who we thought was going to get the Haas seat. Both of us failed. I thought Fittipaldi. You thought
Piastri.
Piastri. Was it Piastri? No, you thought Giovinazzi.
I thought Giovinazzi, but then I was like, realistically, like he's not in contention. So then
Yeah,
I went Piastri, you went Fittipaldi,
yeah. And
but
then
it
it
ended
was pretty.
up,
Was it the next day? Was it Monday? Pretty quick after,
yeah.
whenever Kev Magnussen was given the seat, which I was happy with. You not so much.
I, I just, I just don't think he's great. Like, I if a previous driver was to come in, I would have gone Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg's class, and good fun. But I suppose Magnussen, he does deserve it. You could say he was unfairly given the boot back then. But that's just like an opinion I saw online. They said Gunter would have preferred to keep Magnussen, but obviously they needed money, and Mazepin came in with his dad. So, and Schumacher was always going to come in, I think, being the F2 winner. So they gave Magnussen the boot. So
Yeah. I was happy. I really was. I remember watching the scenes whenever he had finished in Abu Dhabi, and at that race, whenever he was doing the donuts and things, speaking with the team on radio, just saying, "Guys, thanks for the last 4 years. It's been great." And he did whenever Haas were up there, not at the top, obviously, but whenever they were mid-table, like they were going for it, and I, I thought he was good, and then I love, obviously, how he came back was phenomenal. Haas obviously didn't make it, which we'll talk a little bit about later on. But Haas didn't make Thursday, but Friday practice, he went out and set the fastest lap out of everyone. So, which shows that Haas hopefully will have a bit of pace and will be further up, not 2 seconds a lap off everyone else this season. So, yeah, I think it'd be good. It's great for Mick Schumacher as well, having someone, a teammate who has been in Formula One and can learn off him as well. Who will get the number one seat? We will see. Not sure.
absolutely. Yeah, I suppose for what I've found is that it's easy to forget that Haas were actually like decent or the best of a bad bunch like a few seasons ago. Like you just
Yeah,
remember they're awful last year. So I suppose unfairly that was ingrained in my head that they're not great, but Magnussen has actually driven well.
yeah.
Although back then they had Grosjean, who was a bit of a disaster. But anyway,
Yeah,
we'll move on
and
from that.
exactly so much other big news as well has come out. There's probably, well, we've got the Drive to Survive has been released there on Friday, and we will talk much more in depth about that to come. But uh, one of the more recent things, probably which you posted up on social media this week, is Ricardo obviously has tested positive for COVID. So
Absolutely.
that was as of Friday. So they're
Um,
thinking he will race, or what have you heard?
they're saying he almost definitely will race. So I think on Wednesday he was feeling pretty iffy. I'm not sure exactly his symptoms, but he wasn't feeling good, which obviously inside a car going 190, 200 miles per hour is not the best way to feel. So
Especially
yeah,
when they're shaking so much with this porpoising thing that they're talking about.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, didn't feel good on Wednesday. I think he took multiple sort of tests that came back negative, and then he tested positive on Friday. I think it was, or maybe it was Saturday morning. Either way, I think with the current regulations, he will be back in time for next weekend. So hopefully you feel good. Hopefully you don't feel too bad, Daniel Ricciardo. But we'll be excited to see you.
It'd be even more exciting if he was actually listening to this.
I know. I'm not gonna lie, I did DM him this week. Sent him just a wee DM, and I was like, "How can I intrigue him?" But I'm sure he gets this all the time. I was like, "Would you mind coming on? We'll do a shoot." But who knows? Maybe someday.
Yeah.
If we ever go to a Grand Prix, I'll just walk around with a beer in my back pocket, and if I see him, I'll just whip the shoe off. And go.
Oh,
So yeah,
great.
that, and then one you'll be happy with. I know you've watched F1 a lot longer than I have. So what do you
Yes,
think?
Imola. Imola back on the calendar for at least till, well, it's not back, obviously, it's been a calendar for a number of years now, since the last two seasons, so for through COVID, and then again this year, but it's been signed till 2025, which I love. I know this is going to be a, I can already see on social media that a lot of people have been chatting around this. Some people have said, whoop de doo, here's another race where no one can overtake. Then the other side of the fence is people are saying it's such a historic race and they have created cars that can overtake. So hopefully, I just think it's incredible. I love, first of all, Italian Grand Prix. You've got Ferrari signs all around. Amazing. As a Ferrari fan, this is amazing. So I have definitely put it on the 3 year bucket list to 2025. I'd love to go. I would really love to go. It just looks incredible. Whenever they show the little in like the town, it just looks beautiful. You've got this track so close to everything. People in their apartment windows looking out, and but yet there's so much history. Like whenever you go through old documentaries on Formula One, and you've got the whole thing. Obviously, this to people new to Formula One. One of the best drivers, Ayrton Senna, is where sadly he passed away. He was driving, and it's they've now put a chicane in, but it's where around the first corner, pretty much where he went off, and it was a horrendous crash. But that, like things like that, and then there's um, yeah, just the emotion and the history and all that stuff with that, and then just some great races at that track. It really is. It's good. They've made it. They've taken out. It used to have like a real tight left right before a really short um, grid, but that's quite long now, and there's a big DRS straight. So there is definitely overtaking a bit on, and hopefully these cars will mean that there's going to be a lot more. But yeah, so super happy that Imola is back on the calendar. Um,
And
uh, Seeing that obviously was posted up on social media. There's a number of other random little things, Alan, that I've seen um, this week while scrolling through Instagram and seeing stuff. One which I find so fascinating is Alex Albon's helmet. So Alex Albon obviously was with Red Bull, so came up through the Red Bull academy, so to speak, and was a Red Bull driver. Teammates to Max Verstappen, which is always going to be a hard thing. Didn't have the best time, and obviously lost his seat. Sergio Perez got that, and he was out of Formula One for a full year there. Great that he's got a seat again, but now he's sitting in a Williams, which is a Mercedes engine, big rival to Red Bull. Yet he's sitting in that car. If you look at his helmet, he has Red Bull still on his helmet as the sponsor. So I'm not sure. I don't know. He must still have a link or be sponsored by Red Bull in the Mercedes engine and the Williams. So whenever you go on, have a look, or yeah, so just go on to Instagram, go to Williams um, onto their Instagram page, and you will see whenever Alex Albon is in the car. Now, Williams do a really smart, clever job of this, and they will try and get it that his visor is always up, so that the Williams
really,
is over it, so that you can't actually see. It's really hard to get a good, clear picture of it. But we'll obviously see it during the race. So there's a helmet cam looking back at him racing. But they try to cover up as much as they can, but it must have to be there because it's in his contract or
that
something. But
that's interesting. Just because you sort of figured, because they made a whole deal of that, is would he deserves a seat for this year? He's a good driver, but where would Toto Wolff actually allow a Red Bull driver into a Mercedes engine because of obviously the feedback and everything like that. So that's actually fascinating. I suppose
it
interesting
is.
actually, and along the same lines is Oscar Piastri in the Alpine. See, he's Alpine's reserve driver.
Hmm. Yep.
Am I correct in that?
Yep.
He's gonna be. the reserve driver for McLaren for at least part of the season, if not all.
Oh yes, I seen this today,
But
yesterday.
yeah, yesterday I
Yeah,
think was announced.
yeah,
But Alpine were very quick to be like, no, he's still Alpine contracted, but we're allowing him out. So it's
yeah,
interesting. There's going to be a wee bit of movement, but there's still obviously, well, in Alex Albon's case, they've stamped his helmet saying he's
yeah,
ours. Um,
yeah. It's
so
true.
that's
Fascinating
interesting.
though with what you've just said with Oscar Piastri. Like he is great. He really is a good driver, and I think like there's many drivers that McLaren could get to have as a reserve driver. They've asked him. I wonder, is any part of that to put a little bit of pressure on Daniel Ricciardo? So we know that he's good. He's young and he's Australian. Daniel Ricciardo, so he's a similar character. Not like Ricardo's obviously honey badger, big smile all the time, super cheerful person. Not to say that Piastri isn't, but he's got a good character. He is fast, and for them to come in and say we like him as well, just in case, is I think this close to start of a season is a strange one, but I think it is. It could be a little. There's someone here who can take your seat if you don't, and obviously Drive to Survive episode four, three with Ricardo just shows the pressure that like he was under last season
It's true.
and
Yeah.
could be again under this season.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
See, it's good. It'll be an interesting one for sure. It definitely will. Another thing with from last episode, randomly mentioned, um, whenever Ted Kravitz was talking about the Ferrari and the shape of the cars, mentioned Baby Bell. Social media is such a funny thing. Like I have had at least 6 times on my Instagram a Baby Bell sponsored post trying to get me to buy Baby Bells. I'm like, what is happening? It's like, oh, clear phones are listening to us, and this is just. I've never seen this in my life. Like for this little tiny cheese to be trying to get me to buy it, but yeah. So even if you're listening to this, if you get a Baby Bell sponsored post on Instagram, let me know. That'd be great. But yeah, so
And speaking of social media, I just want to take this moment to say that thank you for all the people who have connected with us this week on our social media. As I said last week, we are everywhere. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all at that F1 show. So yeah, we appreciate any and all views or however you want to connect with us. We'd love if you send us some direct messages or comment. Just let us know what you think. And also, if you have any questions for us, please do so. And also, if you like our podcast, and thank you so much for tuning in this week, and if you did so last week as well, we'd really appreciate if you were to follow or download, or I think I think it's follow on podcasts. So then it'll automatically download. It will help our show get up the charts so that people find it when they type in F1 podcasts. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you like this video, give us a like. If you dislike it, give us a dislike, and we'll know that we need to improve on some stuff. And yeah, if you could subscribe, if you want to keep tuning in, that would be great. Again, it all helps us get the show out there for people to listen to. So thank you so much for your support so far, and hopefully we'll be here a long time. And talking about your bucket list item of going to Imola, if we're here long enough, we might be able to apply for press passes and get into the paddock, so we can be really cringy and be in the background waving at all the interviews that Ted Kravitz do. So
yeah,
yeah, thank
that'd be
you,
great.
and check us out on social media wherever you are.
Many of you will probably be listening just on the podcast, but if you are, then you should definitely go on to YouTube at some point this week because it does look like Alan's growing this little tuft of green hair, which
Green
you will
hair.
see. He's got a plant behind his head, and he's just looks like he's got this. Every time he moves forward, all you see is this little tuft of green hair.
I thought you were making fun of my mustache, which I am growing, by the way.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, on YouTube you will definitely see these things. But one of the main things I think this week, obviously we talk about big news with Imola and all that stuff, but has to be yes, pre-season, but Drive to Survive, one of my favorite shows. Have you seen it, Alan? Abigail and I watched it. It came out on Friday. Kids went to school, and we chucked on episode one straight away. So have you?
Well,
We've got
you'd
episode
text.
four.
Yeah, well, you'd text me on Friday asking if I was watching it, and I said no. My wife's working. We're going to watch it on Saturday night. But kids went to bed on Friday, and I sat down on the sofa to watch the first episode, and went up to bed at 1 a.m. having watched the first eight, and stayed awake in bed until 2 a.m. watching the ninth episode, and then finished it on Saturday. So yeah,
Oh,
I've
so
watched it, and
you've seen it all.
I've seen it all, and I'm starting it again because I did promise Claire that we'd watch it together. So
Amazing.
we started episode two today.
Oh, is she
But
enjoying it?
yeah, really likes it. She loves documentaries and the drama that they make. The drama that F1 makes is incredible. Although obviously in Drive to Survive they've been criticised for creating drama where there's no drama, but it's
Yeah,
such a good show. If you're listening to this, if you've heard of our show, you're bound to have heard of Drive to Survive. So I'm
yeah.
sure you're watching it, if not finished it like me.
Do you know? I found out this week that. Oh, I'll ask you. This isn't an Ask Alan question, by the way, but I'll just ask you anyway. What percentage of Netflix viewers in the UK have seen Drive to Survive? Percentage?
Go flip. I'm going to assume it's high if you're asking me, and I don't want to. I always ruin
Oh
these
no,
things by going
I'm
far
building
too
this
high.
up too much now.
55%.
I know. Well, 9.1.
Oh,
I still thought it was quite a lot for 14.6 million Netflix subscribers. So nearly 10%. So 1.4 million
wow.
people
I suppose it's only
just
it's
within
day
the
three
UK.
or
Yep,
day.
just in the
Yeah.
UK. So I definitely built that up too much then.
Sorry, I tried not to do what I always do and ended up doing what I always do and just overestimating
Yeah.
it.
So, but yeah, so I thought near 10% of people with Netflix account to watch is just shows you how big. Like, I remember honestly, Alan, growing up in school, like loving F1, it was so hard to chat to anyone about because no one watched it really. Like maybe one or two, and they didn't follow that much. Same with it, like one of my best friends at uni was into it. He got into it because I was into it, and it was something for us to chat about, and it was great. But now, so many people, and I really do have to say, most of this is in the recent years. It's because of Drive to Survive. Um, so like it really, it's so good. Like I was chatting with someone this week. They had never watched Formula One, never seen Drive to Survive, and they went and watched it this week for the first time and said it is incredible, and they are going to 100% get into this season. So Drive to Survive is great. So you've seen it all.
Seen it all. One
Where
thing
do we,
that
where do we begin? Like without giving too much away, because obviously some people haven't watched it. Let's just go episode one, which is
sure,
pre-season. Timely, timely time to talk about it because pre-season has just finished. So we know what they were going through this time last year to this time this year. You watch episode one. Red Bull seemed strong, and they looked like they were the car to beat. So
yeah, and again in episode one it shows like Mercedes were having problems, which again seems to be the same story this year. But hopefully, in my opinion, it ends up like last year, where Mercedes come back strong immediately, and it becomes hopefully more than a two-horse race, but at least a two-horse race, as opposed to just Red Bull driving away with it. Pardon the pun. But yeah, Red Bull looks strong. And what actually stood out for me was the actual like hatred or animosity between Red Bull and Mercedes. I remember watching Sky Sports like at the start of last season, and quite often because it was like sort of Mercedes won, Red Bull won. It was quite back and forth for the first few races,
yeah,
and they had Toto Wolff and Christian Horner interviewed side by side regularly, and maybe it's just obviously for the TV cameras, they were quite cordial. Sort of, it looked like we respect each other, we're competitive, we're friends off away from the cameras. But
Yeah,
Drive to Survive shows that is the complete opposite.
yeah,
Horner, who in my opinion doesn't come across the best. He really, I suppose, when he's lost sort of 8 years in a row, having won 4 years in a row,
yeah.
it's quite difficult. But he does not like Toto Wolff, and
No,
it's reciprocated to Toto Wolff. They just don't like each other at all.
no.
Um,
And we've only
yeah,
seen, well, you've seen the whole thing. I'm at episode 4, and you can see from the start of the season that they weren't like they were out to get each other pretty much. So by the end of the season, everything that happened, my word, like what it must be, and even now, what it must be with everything that's happened over the winter break, that rivalry is strong. Like it's
oh
not
yeah,
just that; it's a personal rivalry linked with a huge team rivalry, and they've got now you've got George Russell to chuck in the mix. It's going to be good. That is, we don't know where the cars are going to be. Lewis has said some stuff. I think was it yesterday? You,
yeah. Lewis said that the car is that it's not a race winning car at the moment, and they don't expect to be competitive, which is a huge statement to make publicly.
it is, yeah.
Um,
Because
and
normally,
I'm
like
sure,
we know during the races, like Lewis will say, "Oh, my tires are going off," or something like that. Like he makes these comments during races, but you're like, "Oh, that probably means he's got like another 1,000 laps to go in them," or something. Like it's just that he just makes these statements just as a tactical thing. But this to make that statement before the season started, he must know that like they've not been really up there. If you look at the times, um,
and it's different from last season because they're coming in second, or well, Lewis is coming in as the second best driver, according to last season. Um, when you come in at the top,
controversial, Alan.
when you come in at the top, you can easily sort of dig, throw out wee digs at yourself because that sort of
Yeah,
gives people false confidence.
yeah,
Whereas the last thing you want to do is make Mercedes or Red Bull more confident than they probably already are.
yeah,
And they didn't win the constructors last year, so they'll have still a bone to pick. It's not like they can rest on their laurels. They only won the driver, like they didn't win the constructors where the money is. So
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I hope they're wrong. I think one of the huge is this porpoising they're talking about, because Mercedes seem to have speed, but they just they can't they're not fast without the bumping, which apparently is
Yeah,
giving drivers headaches and
yeah.
everything. So yeah, like as a Mercedes fan, I hope they're sandbagging it. I hope they're just throwing it out there, and Lewis comes back again and wins the first race, which is this week.
I did think that they were at the start. I am now starting to think they might actually not have it all together, and they are probably going to be thinking this week, what do we do? Obviously, they made huge changes from this testing to they did in Barcelona, and before. Obviously, the side pods at the side of the car looked so different, and just had everyone talking. This season around Bahrain, because of how slim, narrow they look. The thing, it looks like the side of a shark, like color, everything. Like it's so narrow. It is just so different. And I think Red Bull even were trying to say, is this legal? Is this not? But they've now said it is legal. It's just very different. And I think they could struggle. Not struggle as in like be 10th, 11th, 12th, like mid pack, but I do think they will be a team fighting for to get on the podium
Yeah,
at the
aye,
back,
that's yeah,
which
fighting for third, which is a huge fall from
yeah,
grace.
it is. It definitely is. So
And it sort of seems, as you talk about the narrowness of their car, it seems like Ferrari have the right
I know.
pick.
I so hope.
Like
I really do.
they've looked strong.
They have. They really have. They've been up there. Obviously, tires are different. Everyone. They've had 5 tires that they can use, going from C1 to C5, hard to soft, and so obviously the softer the tire, the quicker it should go, but it wears away quicker, which we can chat a bit more about as the season goes on for some people who might not know. But so if you have the C5, you should be setting the fastest laps. So Ferrari haven't always had the fastest tire on, but have been up there pushing for the top laps, which is great. It's great to get them back up there. As have Haas, which we mentioned before just briefly. So obviously Kevin Magnussen went out, and he Haas, because they was it their ferry that was bringing the cars
Yeah,
over.
I just heard freight, so yeah, you'd imagine that's the shipping containers.
Yeah,
But yeah, didn't
so
arrive.
they didn't get them. Poor guys, once again. So they didn't have all Thursday. So what they let them do, which is very good, they said, here, have an hour at the end of Friday and Saturday, and have the track just to make up that time. So they've done that, and Kevin Magnussen set the fastest lap of the day on Friday, and Mick Schumacher came second there yesterday on Saturday. So it's great. It's so good just to have. What would be so good is to have all the cars just competing, like where we have no idea. 10,
Yeah,
10 races this week. The top half who's going to be bottom, we don't know because they can't fall and they're all pretty even. I was watching a little bit this weekend. Even they were saying how Williams looks like they've got a competitive car. Like it looks not competitive in top end, but it looks solid. It doesn't look like it's going to be slow.
this
So
whole thing with them being able to follow so tightly, like
yes,
you can imagine if they're like nose to tail and something puts the front driver off, there could be a lot of crashes this year, which
yeah,
again adds to the anyone could win. Because
yeah,
if Lewis and Max or George and Max are fighting so close, something could easily happen, and then all of a sudden you've got a fresh podium coming up,
yeah,
which played out over a 22 race season.
yeah,
Anything can happen, and it shows anything can happen. Like Drive to Survive, and it's not a spoiler because it's obviously already happened. Unless you're new to Formula One, and Drive to Survive is how you're catching up with last season. But Red Bull like took an enormous lead. Mercedes clawed it back, and then 22 races in or 21 races in, Max and Lewis are level on points going into the
yeah,
last race of the season. So, and at one point, Red Bull were running away with it.
yeah,
At another point, Mercedes were well ahead in the constructors. So
yeah,
anything can happen. And you would love to see someone like Gasly, Gasly's obviously had a race win, but you just love to see those smaller teams, and especially Williams as well. You'd love to see them like
yeah,
sort of be restored to at least some level of pride,
yeah.
as opposed to just coming last.
Yeah,
So
I think they will. One of the lovely things I noticed, just as a reminder, and obviously today is a timely reminder to mention it, is in Drive to Survive episode 1, you see the Murray Walker quote above George Russell's Williams. Um, it's a quote that says like you've got to stop me now because I've got a lump in my throat, which was whenever he was commentating on Damon Hill winning the championship. But Murray Walker, for those of you who don't know, was a commentator on Formula One, just loved everything about motorsport, and his voice was just that iconic voice which growing up it just reminded you of uh, just Formula One and how he commentated. He was just so excited and just loved everything about it. So he passed away a year ago today. So I can see that more the world has just been saying it's the 1 year anniversary. So like he was the voice that I always will remember. That go 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 as the lights went out.
So,
Um,
like for the people who have just got into Formula One over the last sort of 5 6 years, David Croft is that guy for us. So the voice you hear, it's lights out and away we go.
yes,
Not in a weirdly American accent. What
that's
David
good.
Croft is for us, like synonymous with Formula One. He's the one who starts it, and he's the one that does the amazingly timed monologue as the race winner comes across the line. Like
Yeah,
that's what Murray Walker was for the entire
yeah,
generation before us.
yeah,
And well, before I like we got into it, obviously Roger, that is your generation and the
yeah.
generation before you. So that's who. That's like Murray Walker
Makes
was
us sound years apart, Alan, but it's not true. Can I
just
do
sort
my
of.
Ask Alan?
Oh sure, yep.
Ask
Is
Alan
it?
question. So for those of you who didn't hear last week, I'm going to take just a few minutes of each time we do a podcast just to ask Alan a Random question around motorsport or driving or whatever. Most of it's going to be around Formula One, being a Formula One podcast. So if you do have any questions, some of you have sent me some this week, which I will ask throughout the season. So thanks to those of you who have sent those in. But if you do have any, please email me them.
Did
Which
people actually send some in?
Yeah, I've got some. I've got some. I'm
Class.
going to ask one other that I've got now, but then I'm going to start to ask them and I will say who sent them as well. So that F1show at gmail.com if you have a question for Alan. Some of them are tricky, so but
Well, you may be
you'll see.
disappointed.
Yeah, so this one's super easy, just to still as breaking into Alan. So this week's question is: if you were a driver, pick a teammate and pick a car number, and why. So just while you think, so who would you pick as your teammate? Would you want them to be the best? Would you want them not to be the best so you could seem the best? And what would your car number be? So your favorite number or a number that is, so yeah,
I
go.
would pick either Danny Ricciardo or Carlos Sainz. They just seem, out of everyone on the grid, they seem to be the two that have the most fun. They're constantly joking around, and actually have the best relationships. Probably with, actually, no, I can't say that for Ricardo. You'll see in Drive to Survive that maybe him and Norris aren't that close. But Ricardo's clear is still friendly with Max. That comes across. So, and Signs, he seems to be really good friends with Claire and was
Yeah,
great friends with Norris. So I would choose either Ricardo. I'll go with Signs.
yeah.
I'll go with
Okay.
Carlos Sainz.
Car number?
Car number one, because that would mean I would have won the year before. But if that wasn't there, I'd choose six, I think,
Okay.
which is Latifi's number, I believe.
Okay.
I don't
Any
know
reason
why.
why six?
I don't know. I like single digit numbers, either that or maybe 11. But no, I'd choose six. It was always the number I chose whenever.
Quote of the podcast: I like single digit figures. 11.
Whenever growing up playing the Xbox and PlayStation, if I ever created like a character in FIFA and played, I was always number six. So
Okay.
that's why I choose number six.
I love it. It's great. Any other pre-season thoughts? Thanks for that. That's our Ask Alan for this week. Next week will be harder. Maybe
Hopefully,
not.
you
Maybe
can ask
not.
me two next week. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, no, not really. I suppose I can say it finally. At the end of this week is the first race of the season.
I can't wait.
I'm so happy we got to this point. So yeah, obviously, like,
That's
what
right.
should
This time next week, third podcast, we will literally be talking about who has won the first race.
I know that's great.
Well, do you want to do a predict? So I know we've got a prediction for the whole season. We're going to do that now. But do you want to do a prediction for next week's race?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Oh,
And will we bring everyone else in on this? So
sure. Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you're listening to this now, just send either we'll put a post up on social media and just comment on that who you think is going to be the race winner. Do it before Friday and let's see who gets it. So Alan, who do you think is going to win the Bury and Grand Prix?
I think it will be, oh, maybe a bit sort of out of the blue. I think it's easy to say Max, but I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz.
Oh no, I was going to do it. Okay, I am going to go with. I think Ferrari. They look strong, so I'm going to go with. I'll go with Charles Leclerc.
So Ferrari 1-2, either way.
Yeah, that's
Fer-
we will say. Okay, so those are ours. So guys, if you're send us who you think who will be standing on that number one step on the podium
But
next.
some things just to keep in mind before going into that race is that Verstappen had the quickest on day three there on, would have been yesterday, wouldn't
Yeah,
it? Or this morning maybe. So
yesterday. Yeah.
Verstappen set the fastest time, therefore, judging on that, he has the fastest car. Therefore, we'll get across the line faster than anyone else, theoretically, anyway. But as Roger said, Haas then came in, had the track to themselves. So could they create an upset? How
Could you
great would it be to?
imagine?
How great would it be? We
Haas on the
say
podium.
Schumacher on the podium with the other two
Oh,
Ferraris,
that'd be great.
and Hamilton has come out and said that Mercedes are in no position to be winning races at the moment. So keep those in mind when you're picking who you want to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and with predictions in mind, um, Roger and I have predicted who we think is going to come one, two, and three over the course of the season. So at the end of the season, the drivers that will be standing first, third, and also who will win the constructor championship. Which, for those of you who don't know, is you get points for each of your drivers, like they're added together. So if you come 10th and ninth, you get a combined team total of 3 points. Um, so that's how it works. And towards the end of the season, we're going to guess or predict who's going to come top and who's going to come last. So we're not going to tell you those now, but I've written them down. That's backwards if you're watching on video. I've written them down on a piece of paper. I think
I'm going to hold
Roger's
mine
sealed
sideways
his.
so you can't read. Otherwise, it's just a random piece of paper. Yeah,
um,
as well.
Roger's written his down. We're going to store those in a safe place. And after what will be, at our very least, our 24th podcast, we
Yes.
will we will reveal whether we were right or wrong. So again, feel free to do the same. Write down your prediction for the top three drivers and the first constructor and the last constructor. Put it in a safe place. Mine's just going to be basically magneted to our fridge. So hopefully the kids don't rip them down and I go looking for it. Put it in a safe place, and we will maybe we'll be in a position to give out a prize next
Yeah,
by that
that'd
point.
be it. That'd be great.
So yeah, I think that's
Amazing.
us.
Great chat to you, Alan. Thanks to everyone for listening as well. And I
Yeah,
hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks for listening to That F1 Show once again.
and we'll be back next Monday at 6 a.m. But we'll be recording it right after the Bahrain Grand Prix. So thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you later. See you later, Roger.
See ya.